Hello and welcome to Kinsei-Do Corner. Have you ever wondered how to unlock your full potential and live your healthiest, most fulfilling life? Then this podcast is here to help you achieve just that. We dive deep into the world of health and performance, exploring how to move better, feel better, and live a healthier, more fulfilling life. I chat with inspiring coaches, athletes, health experts, and high performers from all walks of life to learn from their stories, mindsets, and lifestyle choices. Whether you're an experienced high performer or new to the world of health and well-being, I'm in your corner to guide you on the path to being the healthiest, happiest, and highest performing version of yourself. Let's go. And hello, welcome back to Kinsei-Do Corner, episode 71. It's been a while since we've been on. I must say I've not really been very active in the podcast space this whole year yet, but I'm really excited to get back and excited to have Ryan back on the show for I have no idea how many times he's been on, but it's always an amazing chat. And I just recently bumped into him at a CrossFit competition here in Jakarta, so we thought that would be a really great opportunity just to sit down on the podcast again, have a chat about what's going on, and catch up, and also hopefully provide some value for you guys from his vast coaching experience. Welcome back, Ryan. Good to have you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on again. It's awesome. It's always a great time to be on here. Thrilled to be back.
Awesome. So good to have you back. So let's jump right in. The CrossFit competition that I just alluded to was the Fitbuller Showdown, which probably in itself was already running its fifth or sixth time. So a rather established local competition, massive turnout. I was really surprised. I mean, we were me and two of my colleagues were in a team, and there was probably 50 or 48 other teams there in my division alone. And then there was a higher division as well. There were some individual athletes. So I'm going to say probably close to 200 participants.
I think that'd be
taking
right.
part.
Yeah, it was huge.
Massive. So that in itself is kind of worth speaking about, simply because I remember starting local competitions, trying to start up the Fit Games 8 years ago. We were struggling to get 30 people to sign up and want to throw down and want to measure themselves. So the kind of the evolution of CrossFit or functional fitness locally and High Rocks has something to do with that for sure. We will touch on that. But yeah, I mean, maybe just let's kick it off with Ryan. What were your impressions and what did you take away from this event? Obviously, you've been a coach, you've participated, you've won several events in the past, and now this time you were there actively as a coach, coaching an individual athlete and a team. Kind of share with us what you took away from this.
So awesome competition, great turnout, great venue. So shout out to Fabio, Halim, and all the team there who did a great job with the event. The programming was cool. It seems to be improving year by year, which is great. I think that, Fabio, the head programmer there, and the owner of Onyx Gym, who runs Fitbuller every year and a handful of other competitions in Jakarta, I think he's putting a lot of time and effort into creating a great experience for the athletes, but also creating a fair test as well as creating a good show, and that's not easy. And he did it across individual and team events and was able to kind of integrate really, really seamlessly between the two kind of formats, which was really respectable. So shout out to them. Yeah, but it was really good. I think that, the structure of the competition was really healthy. The first day was, the workouts were relatively short, medium, short duration, which was great. And I think that was a learning experience from the programming team after having a few competitions in the past that maybe, intensity was a little bit higher, events were probably a little bit longer. But I think maybe just because of the sheer volume of participants, they had to keep it relatively brief and short and sharp. And so it was great. They took care of the athletes. The venue was awesome. They continuously upgraded the venue. So being there as a coach was great because it was on time, it was run well. So that makes it easy to do our job. If you're looking after athletes or if you're competing yourself, if things go to plan, it's a lot easier, especially, if the event organizer is, taking the schedule seriously and, dotting their I's and crossing their T's and doing the right thing, then it makes it a lot easier on the athletes and the team supporting So it was great.
Yeah, 100%. I echoed all of that 100%. I think obviously known Fabio for a long time. The local event that I mentioned earlier, the Fit Games that I was running, that was actually with Fabio back in 2018 and
Oh, right.
2019. And
Cool.
we were both
I didn't
we
know
were
that.
both new. Yeah, we were kind of new to the whole space. We were just CrossFit enthusiasts, and we had our own little communities. Obviously, Fabio has grown his community significantly since then, and also his skills and knowledge.
He's a
But yeah,
G.
I fully
Love that.
agree. The programming was amazing. The program was great. In fact, the workouts were great. I've never really thought about this balance between programming for a team and for individuals, because yeah, it is very different, right? With the team, you can much more play with strategy, because
Absolutely.
people get a bit of rest during a workout. Whereas an
That's right.
individual, if you try to do a 20-minute workout where you're hammering them from the first second, it just doesn't flow.
It's hard to maintain the stimulus across both divisions, I think, because and especially if if the stimulus does change, it changes for the athlete's journey throughout the course of the competition. Say compared from individual and team. So it's they did do a really good job. You're right. They did a good job at maintaining the stimulus across both divisions, and kind of gave all of the athletes the same journey from the start to the end throughout all of the events. So it was, yeah, they did a great job with that. I thought it was sensational. Every time, so sometimes for me in the past, when you have a competition that has individual divisions and team divisions, you can look at the workouts and you think, oh, that's a great workout in the individual. And then you'll look over at the teams and you'll think, oh, this is a little bit underwhelming, or maybe it doesn't really capture the event that the individuals might be doing, or vice versa. But being able to do that across all of the events is extremely hard. So, yeah, they did a really good job.
Yeah, yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing, and I think also it it speaks to Fabio's and his team's experience, as well as kind of reputation to have brought in that many people, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's not as much as CrossFit has, or functional fitness has grown in popularity, and as more people are doing it, it's still not easy getting recreational athletes to want to sign up to something like this, and basically a
Same.
give up their whole weekend, and
Yep.
b kind of put themselves on the line like this, right? Because
That's the big one too. I think that's the main one, is feel feel confident enough to throw their hat in the ring. Feel safe doing that.
yeah, 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 and I guess yeah, safety. You've mentioned safety. Safety is also a big one. I like. It's also sometimes easy to program movements that aren't actually very safe.
It
And
is absolutely.
somehow he didn't do it. He didn't do that at all this time, right? That was, I think, probably the most dangerous thing was the snatch overhead, and
Yeah,
we were fine with
maybe
that.
the rope. They had a rope climb as well, which was a little bit daring, but I think you know, I think if you're going to teeter on the the cusp of movements being quote unquote unsafe, I think he was super selective, and I think it
Yeah.
definitely was the right balance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the rope climb also, obviously, that was in the final event where you kind of had already whittled down to the best athletes.
Very
So
true.
again,
Definitely strategic.
you can say it's safe enough because you've gotten to the cream of the crop by then.
There's a
But
higher
yeah,
likelihood that they will have trained them more.
they didn't have any of the, let's say, the lower placed athletes like myself and my teammates do
Ah,
anything
dude, don't do that to yourself, man. You're a
outrageously
prime
dangerous.
specimen. Okay?
It is, it definitely is something that you kind of think of yourself when you see yourself in the bigger picture, right? And I did talk about this with some people afterwards. Like within the people that I'm normally spending time with, colleagues at work, family, you always, like, you do think you're fit, you're the stud, you're but then
You are a
it
stud. I
really
saw you
comes,
on the
yeah, you
sandbags.
realize, okay, compare yourself with actually people that actually also train, and suddenly the ranking is not as flattering. But that's all good, and that is actually, that kind of leads nicely into what I wanted to talk about, was motivation.
Sure, sure.
And for me, just even though we placed very lowly, this whole thing, this whole experience was such a big motivational kicker to make me want to become better again. Because again, in recent times, I've kind of been training for just because I know I need it, and I enjoy it, but there hasn't really been that much of a target, and therefore this has been amazing. Yeah.
There's a saying that I really love, and I actually just quoted it maybe today or yesterday, and I tell athletes this all the time. I may have mentioned it on social media once or twice too. It's you can learn more about yourself as an athlete in one weekend of competition than you can in 6 months of training. And
Okay.
I love that because I feel it's so true.
Mm.
Even for me, I had athletes entering and in both divisions, team and individual, and even for me as a coach, it was a huge learning curve over the weekend. And I came, even myself as a coach, I came away super motivated with how we're going to improve the athletes so that next time, the mistakes that we made on the weekend don't happen again, or where we fell short, perhaps in our programming, in our training in the off season, was obviously highlighted in the weekend. And I came away motivated, as well as the athletes. Okay, how are we going to improve moving forward? And it's not even necessarily about training harder or training longer. It's nothing like that. It's actually just about changing the stimulus and having different focuses, So it's so true. I hope everybody came off of the weekend super motivated, and, because all that's going to do is just snowball the community more, and that's what we need. And hopefully inspire more boxers and more gyms to hold their own events and also just get better and better and keep the competition standard climbing higher and higher.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit of a balance, right? Because you don't necessarily want gyms or people with lesser experience than Fabio and, let's say, the Benkel guys, the Sweatbox guys, all of these guys that have experience programming good events, running good events. You don't necessarily want the quality of events to be diluted by too many people suddenly putting on their own things.
Do it in your own gym first. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Or just prepare your athletes and send them to these established events. But no, it was great. It was a good one. So let's kind of look at this piece of motivation. So let's say, and I'm going to just selfishly use this opportunity to pick your brain and to
go ahead. Yeah,
catch up on your expertise. For me, and obviously you know me, you've kind of seen where I've come along, and you see the level that I'm at now. If you were my coach, how would you think about training for me, given that I want to be better, but I have all of these constraints that probably many listeners have: time, other commitments, family, health, in the sense that I don't recover anymore like I did 20 years ago. All of these. Where would you go?
I'm just trying to think of how I can answer this without flapping my jaws for the next 20 minutes. I'll try and condense this answer effectively. So I think first things first, I would look at where the athlete wants to go. I mean, what they want to achieve, of course. Like, do you have a desire to compete in local competitions? Are you not interested in competing? Are you just looking to improve your health and improve your strength and movement over time? But I think fundamentally, the foundation for that is all the same for everyone, which is movement. And movement quality and movement economy. So for me, the first thing that I always am doing is trying to fix biomechanical flaws in athletes so that we can get you doing everything well. And if there are movements or particular, say modalities that I'll say movements for, a more basic term, if there's movements that really hurt you not in the gym, but maybe the next day, you don't recover from them. We need to find out why that is. And if there's either a movement issue there that's happening, or a strength deficit there might be happening, or even just a capacity deficit that might be happening. Not everyone has to go to the CrossFit Games, but you still want to build capacity for particular movements, of course, and hopefully all movements. So that you can perform when you need to. Outside of that, I probably would suggest, for someone like you anyway, and anyone like you, is to not just purely focus on training being the driver for progress. So as long as we have, so in terms of training, we have, the foundation, the fundamental, which is movement and movement economy. And then outside of that, we want to start working on the other pillars that make the athlete, or make the that determine progress measurably. So things like your sleep quality, things like, obviously your fueling and hydration quality, things like, lifestyle factors like stress management, all of those things have such a much larger impact on people's progress than they might think than just training harder, So I would definitely do that first. So talking about, just to recap, movement economy and, fundamentals in movement. So making sure that you move well, because the better that you move and, the more mobile that you are and the less biomechanical inefficiencies you have, the better that you will recover, because essentially you're doing less damage, right? And people will have a lot of trouble recovering or be on the cusp of injury or have chronic inflammation when they're forcing movements that they shouldn't be doing and or aren't performing correctly with the right biomechanical nature, if that makes sense. And then they'll pair that with, poor diet or underfueling or chronic dehydration, stress and poor sleep. And all of a sudden, no matter what you do, if you don't address those first, there's no progress. There's no training program that's going to help, And then we can go on to the next thing. I'll stop there, but I can add on what I would do next if all of those are taken care of. So if those foundations covered, then you can move to like what would be like a tier 2, in my mind anyway, of coaching, of progress acquisition, I would say, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think it's important for people to hear, including myself, because you see, you go to these competitions, you see these people, you see them doing muscle ups and handstand walks, or maybe not even that, right? Just you see them doing sets of kipping pull-ups, things that then you think, okay, this is the next step. This is the skill that I must unlock. But maybe my shoulder mobility is shit. And by trying to learn these and by forcing more sessions doing kipping pull-ups and kipping work in the gym, I'm actually making it worse over time, especially over the short
Absolutely.
time.
Yep, absolutely. You could be very well exacerbating and amplifying underlying issues or habits of dysfunction, and therefore, basically sending yourself backwards rather than forwards. So you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people always kind of veer towards training being the issue, but it's really not. Not the right type of training anyway. A harder program or longer metcons with more pain aren't necessarily going to solve a problem. They should really only be performed using domains and modalities that you're efficient in anyway. Unless you're doing some type of skill training where you're performing a movement for quality with, say, a time domain like an EMOM or something, then that's perfectly fine. But I think a lot of people will walk away from the competition this weekend being like, oh man, I got to train harder. And it might be true, but we need the right direction first. And we also need the fundamental to hold us, building the house on the sand, the classic tale of building the house on the sand versus building a house on the concrete or the solid dirt. Yeah. You got to make sure you've got your foundations in order.
Yeah, 100%. And like just as you're saying this, the kind of what I felt after the second event with the wall walks, definitely that bottlenecked me, right? I took most of the team's time because I was just slow on the wall walks. And then and then the sumo deadlift high pulls, they were fine, they were okay.
Yeah.
So immediately I come back and I'm thinking, now it's obvious that I'm not great at wall walks because I hardly ever practice them, almost.
You're also a very tall man. You got a long way to go, man. I'll give you some credit there. Come on.
That doesn't help, but yeah, in general, right? Shoulder, let's say overhead isometric strength was basically lacking. It's not there. So immediately I'm like, yeah, okay, I need to do that more. But and maybe yes, if I do wall walks every week, I will get better at wall walks. But I probably won't actually fix my capacity, let's say, constraints. Overall, right? Because
absolutely,
I might even tighten up things even more.
Yes.
So it's very, very tempting to want to fix exactly what didn't go well, but you got to look at the foundation.
You do, absolutely. And you got to break the movement down and think about what actually, wall walks are hard for everybody, but what actually was it that was bottlenecking you in the movement? You know what I mean? Because It could be a core strength issue. It could be, simply just a misunderstanding of the movement. It could be scapular, weakness with scapular stability. It could be thoracic extension at the top of the wall when you're trying to touch your chest to the wall, or try and getting your hands, 10 inches from the wall as per the CrossFit standard. There's many things that can actually go wrong. And by fixing one of them, you could be doing, it's like classic 80-20 rule, by fixing 20% of the movement, you could get 80% of the ROI on it when you're performing it for time, for example. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And then the other thing, obviously, you mentioned efficiency, movement, economy. For practically my entire life, my ankle mobility has been poor. I've ever since really figuring that out, and kind of the last, let's say 5, maybe 7 years, maybe probably since discovering CrossFit 6-8 years ago, I've been trying to work on that, and I have improved, but it's one of these things that often you just accept, right? You just say, okay, yeah, this is how I am, this is how I move, and that's why now suddenly I can't do a squat snatch, I can't, like, my overhead squats are poor because obviously the bar is way too much in front, and all these things. And it doesn't actually have to be that way. Actually, I mean, I'm not going to get the ankle mobility of a Olympic weightlifter, but I can still improve it, hopefully.
Absolutely, you can. And I think it comes down a lot to, an individual's specific proportions as well. And moving, one of the things that I really have discovered in the last sort of few years of coaching, once I kind of got really interested in biomechanics and movement itself, because I wasn't always as a coach, and there was a huge hole in my coaching quality and my coaching standard, but I've strived to fix that, especially over the past few years. And one of the things I really realized is that there's no one way for everybody, of course, and you have to move. You have to meet yourself where you're at, and also move. You have to work with your strengths. You have to work with your own proportions. It's really important. There is a way for everyone to do everything. That's what I do believe, but not everyone does it the same way, if that makes sense. So, for example, you've got, obviously, the most common differences in people's, anatomy is probably you'd see people with long or short torso and long or short legs. You can discuss femur length and all these other things, but primarily those are what there's basically two sort of major categories. They have subcategories, but major categories of athletes is going to be people with long or short torso and long or short legs. And, they squat differently, they move differently, they pull differently, their starting positions are different, but it has to be in accordance with how they're built, And some people have to, because your body is always going to find range elsewhere when it doesn't have it where it needs, if that makes sense. I know you would know that from coaching. And I think a lot of athletes don't know that. Then we really need to engineer movement in accordance with one's proportions so that we can get the best out of the athlete, or get the best out of get the most ROI out of the body for the movement, for the specific movement that you're trying to demand, So for example, what I mean by that is, if someone's listening and they're not sure what I'm talking about, what I mean is that, for example, if you've got someone with long legs, generally they're not going to be able to have the same snatch starting position as someone with short legs. They're going to have to, especially if ankle mobility is an issue, they're going to have to adopt a wider stance. They're going to have to adopt more probably external rotation with their femurs. They might have to adjust their foot angle on the floor. They're going to lift marginally differently from someone with short legs who can squat deep and start from a really low starting position. In order to achieve the same low starting position with longer legs, they might have to have their knees wider. They need to get their legs out of the way. And this carries over to every movement in CrossFit or weightlifting, So you got to play to strengths, is what I'm trying to say. I think a lot of people try and simulate movements or emulate other people in CrossFit or weightlifting because they watch videos and they think, oh, I should do it like that. But I think it's a lot more beneficial and a lot safer to study your own proportions and find what works for you, or essentially hire someone who can do that, like you and me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very clear that your knowledge and your experience with this is significantly more than mine. But actually, this leads us nicely to kind of talking a little bit about your business.
Yeah,
sorry, about our business in that sense, coaching.
we're in it together, man.
How do you work? I mean, given all of these individual differences that or nuances that you actually have to take into account when working with someone, how do you do that when your work is mostly online, when you often um, or maybe you can talk to that, but when often the extent of the input that you can give to a client is a program with parameters, with certain advice, but you're not actually there, you're not seeing them.
Yes, absolutely.
How and then this will be, I'm sure this will be interesting to people who are now listening to you and thinking, okay, I do want to work with Ryan, but what am I, how is all of
What are you going
this
to get?
expert knowledge, how is all this expert knowledge actually going to reach me if we only talk about what talking over WhatsApp?
Yeah. So obviously, I have different tiers of what I offer, but we'll talk about the full coaching, say for example. So what we do is I'll essentially audit somebody or assess somebody when they come and talk. When they come and meet me, I ask them a million one questions because I want to find out everything I possibly can. What is their lifestyle like? Their nutrition? How's their sleep? Their stress management? Like we discussed with that foundation. Of recovery and progress acquisition, and then what I'll do is my best system now that I use is I actually run them through. So when someone signs up with me, they get a 12-week package of programming. Okay, so I prefer to use longer durations because we can do more work in that time. And then we have a retention fee after that they can pay, a lower retention fee where they pay, like a maintenance fee that they pay monthly after that, and then we can continue to work. But for the first build, I will actually run them through a week of, we call it the synthesis profile. So it's a week of training. It's 5 days of training that they have to complete and film for me. And then they send it through to me, and based on the work, so the workouts are accumulated to test all the aspects of fitness that I find to be essential for one who wants to get better, progress, or compete in CrossFit. So they conduct these 5 days of training, they film it, they send it back to me, I review it, and then I am scanning for biomechanical inefficiencies. I'm scanning for gaps in capacity. I'm scanning for biomechanical dysfunction. I'm scanning for mobility, deficiencies. I'm scanning for strength deficits, skill deficits, and then I will come back and meet with the client again and be like, this is what you need. We're going to build you a program to do A, B, and C, and D over the next 12 weeks. And what we do from then on is every week they'll get programming, they'll get nutrition that aligns with that programming to make sure that they're fueling right, they'll get hydration protocol. We discuss sleep and stress management as well. And then on top of that, they are sending me videos to analyze. Usually it will be videos that I will request, but if the client is more quote unquote, enthusiastic, I'll just ask them to send me anything that they can. Mm-hmm. And then I give them in time feedback, on the same day via WhatsApp, via voice message, or via, typing. If I think it's going to be better, something that they want to read back again, I'll type it out for them. Or even better, I'll go a step ahead and I'll just record a personal video for them on exactly what they need to do. So I'll have a list every day when I go into the gym. I'll record a bunch of videos for all my clients of things that I want them to fix specifically, and I'll show them from my own video. So that's kind of how we're doing it over the course of the 12 weeks. And then with the programming, we give them specific modules of the program that they have to also record for metrics for me as well. So I'm talking about split times. I'm talking about, weights that they used. I'm talking about things like, giving me, feedback of their session and how it felt and what they feel they were missing or lacking, etc. So that's kind of how they were doing it.
That is amazing. That is,
thank you.
I think that, I mean, just listening to all of the information that you gather and kind of information that you feed back, I would almost bet that is more than what many personal trainers who are actually in the gym with their clients do for them. This is,
I absolutely agree. It's a lot. It's a lot. But, I really, when I decided to go online and really give it a good go, I, really wanted to commit to trying to be the best that I possibly can, and provide, because I actually asked myself the same questions. How can I over provide and value here for the client when they can go into a gym and get a personal trainer? How am I going to win? And for me, this was the answer. I'll give them something that simply just not hopefully, but I'll give them something that other personal trainers and coaches just can't. And that's really the game that I'm trying to play here, is which over provide and value and go the extra mile in every aspect we possibly can for the client.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that should be the mantra of everyone working with people, but it isn't. It's amazing that you do that, and yeah, often because of the limitations that are the perceived limitations of working online, which clearly you are breaking them down, but because of these perceived limitations with not being there, not seeing the person move live and all of these things, because of that, online coaches usually charge a lot less, and
Yes.
then they charge less, and that means they can't actually give as much time because they have to have more clients
And
to.
it's so saturated, it's so saturated with coaches. And I read a book a little while ago by Alex Hormozy, and I know Hormozy has his yes crowd, and he has people who don't necessarily like his hustle culture, aura or whatever he has. But he made a great point in the book, and it was about building offers. And he was saying, if you do choose a low price point from the beginning, all it takes is for number one, you're not going to be motivated to over deliver anyway, because you feel like you're selling your soul essentially, or you feel like you're being, you feel like you're being underpaid for what you do. So that's not a good incentive for coaches to be excellent anyway in the beginning. But all it takes is for someone to come in and cut you down, and then the next person to cut them down. And it's basically a race to zero. And what you have is you have a saturation of coaches out there who are being undervalued, they're being underpaid, and they also have a low, I suppose, self-esteem about themselves and maybe their product. So, I will admit I have a high ticket price, but I make I do literally everything in my power to create just an exceptional experience for the client, and also just get them the same results. I would rather have the workload so high that I can't possibly take any more clients, but at least I can get the clients that I do have just world-class results, which is what we're after.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's such a, I mean, everyone understands it. And yet when you are on the client side, you still go shopping for the lowest price. But people technically understand that the race to the bottom cannot be won, right? And it's a chicken and egg
Cannot be won.
thing.
Everyone loses.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
Whatever it
right.
is that
It
you're
is.
offering, you never want to be seen as overcharging, charging high and not providing value. But likewise, you can't provide high value if you don't charge a fair amount, a fair price.
It's absolutely right, man. If you're working for pennies, I mean, you can't. And it does make it a little bit more niche, and it makes the target audience a bit more narrow. But I don't think that's a bad thing. There are people out there who really want to improve. There's people who don't have access to the resources to coaches locally, and even if they do, it might just be better that they're happier, with the intimacy of an online relationship rather than a remote relationship rather than in person. So if you're looking for a coach, hire Joe. Joe's the man.
Thanks for those words, but actually the message is hire Ryan. He knows what he's talking about. No, I mean, yeah. I know we're coming up on time as well. This has been great, and as with all
Thanks,
the
man.
episodes in the past, we could always go on, and we can always just chat more and go down other rabbit holes. I know it was in my outline. We haven't even talked about high rocks at all, and I'm not going to start now because then we're
That's
not going to
okay.
end.
No worries. We'll do another installment, I'm
But
sure.
but actually, this is a nice opportunity. Do you have athletes in your roster that are going for the high rocks in Jakarta in a month and a half?
Actually, yeah. So
So let's catch up after that again because I'm doing that
yeah.
as well.
Oh,
And then we
okay. Let's rock and roll. Yeah, we do.
can
We
chat
do.
about lessons from high rocks.
We have the national
Fantastic.
champs in the male doubles right now, so they're prepping. They're from Strength Club. They're two of our coaches, so they'll be going in and giving that a shot. But I think they're going for the title again. I'd say they're in the same double males.
Double males. Okay. Oh, then I mean I'm doing double male as well. So maybe we're unlikely to be in the same heat, and obviously they're going pro, I suppose.
They are, yeah.
But yeah, cool. Maybe I'll get to see them
That's
fire
my
alarm
smoke
going off.
alarm. Sorry. Yeah, it's funny. You don't really have them in Indonesia that much. You don't see them that often, but it goes off here all the time.
They are everywhere, but probably they're disabled. Yeah. But anyway, this was amazing, Ryan. Really good to catch
Thanks,
up. I
man.
mean,
It
we
was
had a
great.
chat at the Fitbuller itself, and but this was just another giving a bit more meat and a bit more context to to how you work, and hopefully it's convinced everyone to reach out to you and start working
Thank you so much.
on their own weaknesses, because we all have them one way or another.
Absolutely.
And clearly you've demonstrated that you can do something about that. So wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Awesome. Yeah, it's been awesome.